typically men, they have one ruler, one master, and usually it's between their legs.
Yep.
And how do you keep that from sticking its head up? Has it ever happened?
Yes, it has. I will tell you.
Welcome to M's Adventures and Stories. Today we're continuing our conversation with Jason, the nude art model. Enjoy.
Yes, it has. I will tell you the more prosaic thing is spontaneous, but as I said before, it's one of the least sexual things you can do. Your body's in pain. Having said that, it did happen once, unintended, and when it happens, you can't will it away. Try as you might. That,
So you can't make it stop?
No, it was...
You can't make it go down?
Oh, I was at full mast. That I was just thinking, like, oh my God. And it was funny because, there are some guys who get into this for the wrong reasons and will plume like a peacock. They don't get invited back. They quickly fizzle out, but it happens. So the last thing, and fortunately I worked with this woman multiple times, so it wasn't held against me or anything like that. But still, I didn't want her thinking, oh geez, was he just leading me on and now he's just this scummy scumbag and whatever. I didn't know what to do, so I thought, should I tap out? Should I, I got a cramp, I got to go step out in the next room for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, so I thought, okay, let's just sit this thing out, and eventually...
Were you sitting?
I was sitting. And I felt movement, and I thought, okay, it's just, at first I figured, your body will do weird things when you're trying to stand perfectly still. Like, you'll feel individual beads of sweat roll down you.
Oh.
You'll find things where your bits and pieces are just getting comfortable, but they move, but you're more perceptive to the movement because you're not wearing anything and you're remaining perfectly still. Hey, thank you very much. So, but yeah, I was so embarrassed, and what I wanted to do was, after I got dressed, after everything was said and done, I wanted to go back and talk to the professor and say, hey, I am totally sorry, that was not intentional.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that because there was some apple polisher there trying to vie for the professor's attention, and wouldn't, and they weren't talking about that. They were talking about whatever. So I'm like, okay, I it's awkward enough as it is. I'm just going to go home, and if she emails me the next day and says, hey, Jason, what the hell was up with that? I'll deal with it. She never brought it up, and I thought I would never bring it up, and I figured, okay, we're just not going to bring it up.
Oh. Interesting.
It is. When I talked about...
So she never brought it up?
No.
But it was very obvious.
Oh, I did not look down because, as diligent as I was still trying to... My pose was, up at my view was... I was looking up at an angle. I didn't want to break my pose just for that. Okay. I frankly knew...
Did you hear any giggling?
No, but what I did hear was a bunch of people... where they're erasing their picture, and I'm like, no, come on, no, please.
Trying to change the picture?
Yes, I beg of you, no, it's fine, it'll just it was, in the studio I was at, it was like freezing cold, so I'm thinking, okay, hopefully the AC will start kicking on, and whatever.
Yeah.
But, and it's funny, just on the same subject, when I was talking about, posing and, the first time everybody had surrounded me, one of the things that I was constantly trying to hide was I was trying to hide it, and I don't know. Right.
So you considered your penis to be the bad side of you?
Yeah, or more like, I don't know, I was still starting out. And I thought, well, if it doesn't have to be there, that it doesn't have to be in public view. It doesn't necessarily have to be.
But then they would ask you to wear a thong.
That's, and it was something I wasn't even thinking of at the time. It was just, it's totally irrational, that sort of hang up.
It's because nudity is such a weird thing in this country.
Right.
Because it's so prudish.
And I was talking about a year after that, there was an English woman who had an art modeling blog. And she sent me a message saying, hey, do you mind if I link to your blog because you have a lot of good things to say and blah, blah, blah. So we started talking, that. And she told me a situation where she was modeling with a male model, and she's like, there's something about the body language that makes me think he's uncomfortable. And I took a look, because she had posted some of the drawings of them. And I'm like, the guy has very chaste poses. And I'm like, I know exactly what he's doing, because I did the same thing, that, hey, if everybody's, facing me from this direction, I'm going to kind of maybe raise my leg over in this so you can't see it. I'm like, I see exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, you're trying to create some sort of a barrier.
Yes.
Again, this was why the very first time I was like, you know what? Front and center. That is the headliner. That's what I'm painting. That's the main thing, because, my God, it's there. Let's not ignore it.
Yeah, it's like, I remember specifically you said that. You said, because we talked about it in an email afterward, and it was just like, look, no, I think you even said this to me. It's like, look, someone's going to do it at some point. It might as well be somebody that you're close with, and it's going to be it's not going to be weird,
Yeah.
But, and it gets back to the point where, male models can have body image issues too, certainly with that sort of thing.
So, body image issues as in dysmorphia, in terms of worrying about their size of their member?
Yeah,
So are all the people who model larger than normal at resting size?
I wouldn't say that. I've only come across one person that frankly looked like they were an ancient fertility statue.
What?
Oh, the ancient fertility statues they had from the Etruscans that all had freakishly large...
Yes.
No, they're not like that, but it's something I've always been sensitive about.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're working with a bunch of models.
Yeah. Because you've seen all the other models naked.
Yeah.
I assume you've all been around enough that you've all seen each other.
Yeah, either in the flesh, so to speak, or, at the very least, there were people who I never worked with, but because I modeled at enough places and saw enough art on the walls, hey, that's Jane, that's Tom, I've never met them. I've had models come up to me. There was a very prominent female model. I don't think she's worked for years. I was at the Corcoran, and she runs up to me. She's like, are you Jason? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pleased to meet you. And she's like, I'm Nicole. I'm like, Nicole, I've heard your name. And she said, no, the reason I knew you was because the professor that I had worked with months ago had this really, I don't know what the technique is. She took her pen and she drew a portrait of me, not by drawing, but by doing a lot of...
Oh, yeah.
So she used it as one of her, demonstration pieces to the classes. And she saw it and she recognized me through that.
Yeah.
And then was, walking by class one day before class started. And she's like, I've seen that guy before. I mean, there's so many models, I'm like, that do it full time. There's enough of them that I'm honestly surprised if I don't see a picture of them somewhere.
So there are people that model full time?
Yes, there are.
Do they make a living doing it?
As far as I know, but I don't know. That
can't be very many people.
And I don't know if they have other side hustles, or if maybe they have a spouse or a partner that works full time and they can do that. There are people who do it, but what I think they do is a couple things. They travel up and down the East Coast because there's different. You can you can go up to New York. There's plenty of opportunities there.
Lots of work there.
Exactly. Miami, Philadelphia. They do that. They also do a lot of photography, which pays more. You know, the potential downside is you take a photograph, it's generally around forever, especially these days. Whereas drawings can be a bit more temporary in the sense. So that would be something if you have to be truly committed and comfortable with that sort of thing. Not that there's anything smarmy that goes around, but you know, that does pay more. So I think what happens is those that do it full time are constantly hustling for gigs. Whereas, you know, for me, having a full-time job, I can be selective, and I was not selective when I started. I was at the point because I wanted to make my bones, and I figured, you know, the more places you work for, the more exposure you're going to get, you know, figuratively and literally, and the more people are going to notice you, that as long as the place was accessible via public transit, I would work it. Those days, I think, are long gone. We're in Arlington, for me to schlep out to like Rockville on a work evening, those days are probably going to be. And as I get older, I value having my weekends free. That was one of the reasons I got a lot of work when I first started, because I volunteered to work weekends. And I would have people tell me that, you know, because I'd be there early, they'd be coming to unlock the building, and they'd say, "Oh, thank God you know, it's like every time I drive here on a weekend, there's something in the back of my head, oh my God, what if the model doesn't show up?" And then she's like, "Oh, well, it's Jason, I know he's going to be there," and which is very flattering. And it got to the point where, you know, people would say, "Hey, I'm so glad that you can, you know, do this on a Saturday or Sunday morning when you'd rather be in bed," because a lot of the established models who've been doing this 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you know, they've kind of made their bones. They're like, "Hey, I want to sleep in on weekends."
They're not going to work on a weekend. So, because you have a day job, so you don't need to do this as a full-time thing, and you used to do it a lot, and you wanted to do it because you wanted to do something out of the ordinary, right?
It was definitely self-actualization.
Okay. And it turned out to be that in a way that was unexpected, because you said it was sort of like meditation. So it really was like a workout, a mental workout, also a physical workout, but really a mental workout, thinking, wow, because you got to think a lot of deep thoughts.
It is, and it got to my mantra when I first started out was, you know, I don't have to do this. I get to do this.
Right.
And when it starts to feel like work, actual work, that's when I'm going to have to kind of reassess and maybe kind of pump on the brakes a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But it was something that I wasn't feeling satisfied in my professional life at the time. So to realize, hey, as much as this day may suck, in a couple of hours, I get to do something meaningful.
Yeah.
And that would invigorate me.
Right.
And there was this afterglow after I would model.
Yeah, a high.
And I'm putting my clothes back on.
Serotonin high.
And I'm sore. But you're right, that serotonin high, those endorphins were flowing.
Yeah.
I'm in pain, I'm staggering, limping, walking back to the metro.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel any of that pain because all I could think about was what went on the past few hours.
Yeah.
There was, and things that are like, not imperceptible, that's not the word I'm looking for. Case in
not
point.
Tangible.
Intangible, that's what I meant.
It's like it's the treasures, national treasures, intangible. What is the phrase they say about things that are, like it's not like the seventh wonder of the world,
right,
but it's considered an intangible
right,
national treasure or something like that.
Yeah. And it's like certain things, like there was one time I was working at the studio and it was the afternoon gig and it was raining out and it was cold and it was gray, but the studio was so warm and it felt cozy and it was like the most peaceful place on earth that I could possibly be, which sounds so astounding to other people that like you're lying down on a pad naked in front of a bunch of people you don't even know.
Yeah.
And you find this almost like being back in the womb.
Yeah.
Just self-actualizations, just things like, hey, I challenged my body in a way I didn't think I could do, but I did it. Things just like, you get back on the bus, you get back on the train, and you're thinking, you're just soaking in what you accomplished.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just very...
So there was like the physical accomplishment of being able to hold a pose, and then of course the mental, well I don't know, I guess it's mental, breaking boundaries, but then also just the extra bonus that you got of the meditative angle.
Exactly, it was the perfect package.
The existential part of it.
Exactly, it's very existential. It was satisfying on multiple levels. And hey, I'm also getting paid for it. And hey, they said at the end of the class, some people applauded, and the coordinator said, hey, I'm going to send you an email in a couple of weeks. I'm going to give you something for the next semester. That's very powerful.
And having done something well.
Exactly.
That itself.
And something I'm being thanked for.
Yeah.
And for people that are actually grateful for what I did.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying any of this to sound like I'm high on myself.
No.
But the fact that this was something I had been looking for a while. And the opportunity came to me perfectly wrapped in a bow tie.
Right. And that you were good at it.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it feels good doing something I'm good at, that I'm always learning, but it's something I feel that, whenever anybody says something like, you're very still when you hold your poses, or something like, really? And no, there's people who they hold their arm out for 30 seconds and it's, flapping up and down. I thought, well, geez, that's flattering. That you're doing something you enjoy, and people are enjoying having you be a part of their world for a couple of hours.
Yeah. So, isn't it usually cold? Don't you usually get cold in a studio?
I run hot, so that's almost never a problem for me.
Okay.
There's sessions where for the first couple of gesture poses I'm breaking a sweat, even if I got there early and it's not even hot out.
Yeah.
That having been said, some of the rooms can be chilly. The old Corcoran building in Georgetown, that I think was a former school and was over like 100 and something years old. That was very chilly. But for me, like I said, I run hot, so I actually prefer it when it's a little bit cooler. Now, I can say sometimes that last hour or so, you can start feeling like a little chilly. But here's the other thing. Pardon. Most of these places will have a space heater. Pardon. In fact, there's one case where, oh my goodness, it was the Corcoran downtown. Somebody spilled acetone or some sort of chemical, and it was filling up the room pretty quickly. So they hit the emergency vents. They opened up the windows.
Right.
Well, it was like January.
Wow.
So the professor said, "No, we're going to get you. It's like we can't find a heater, but we're gonna get you something."
Yeah.
A couple minutes go by. An administrator comes in. Said, we've got like the executive vice president of the school personally looking for a space heater for you. So they take it seriously.
Yeah.
There was one time it was the DuPont Drawing Group. They're defunct. It was held in a old Episcopalian church. There was one time, it was December, and I was actually breaking a sweat. So the moderator actually went out and got a small little portable fan for me.
Oh, nice.
So, they do. Most places are pretty good about having a space heater, which doesn't really. It doesn't heat the entirety of you. It's just enough. It's putting just enough warmth on a particular part of your body to make the rest of it more manageable. Sometimes you'll get the oscillating heaters where I feel like the old McDLT keeps the hot side hot and the cold side cold, where it's kind of like, okay. for every body part of me that's happy, there's a corresponding body part that is not happy.
Yeah. So that's good though, because really it's nice that people know how to treat the models as well as they can, because it is really a rare thing to get a model, and a good model. You know, I challenge anybody to try to sit still for a minute and not move.
Oh yeah, that's what when
people will do it and they'll think, and then they should look at the clock and it'll be like 10 seconds.
Oh, absolutely,
You know?
Absolutely. I told I was interviewed for. Do you remember the old Washington Post Express that they used to hand out?
Oh yeah, the little free newspaper.
Yes, I was interviewed for that. And I remember I told the person interviewing me, hey, if this is something you're thinking of doing, I said something like, stand barefoot on your linoleum kitchen floor for 5 minutes. Stand perfectly still. Don't fidget. If you can do that and it's manageable, then it might be something you want to look into further. But you're right. And I would say, but on the other hand, I would say every model has probably had at least one, if not more, negative experiences. You do get some artists who will either objectify you or consider you to be like a prop, or are astounded when you tell them, no, I can't get into this crazy position and hold it because that's my limitation. I cannot do that. It's very rare, but it has happened, and I'm sure if you were to talk to more experienced models who do it more frequently, they could tell you stories. Not to say to dissuade anybody from modeling, but there's going to be those instances that are just kind of like, you're going to have like a person who's, I'll give you a perfect example, getting back into the same pose. I've had countless people explain, you're never going to get fully 100% back into pose, but you try to get that 98, 99%.
Right.
There's times where you'll have one or more people, no, yeah, your arm was more like this, your arm was more like, oh, thank you. Oh shoot, I dropped my napkin. And sometimes what the moderator will do is like, look, I think Jason's pretty much back into pose.
Yeah.
You probably moved your podium, you probably moved your...
maybe you moved your head a little.
Stand a bit, right. So, and then, for the next 5 minutes, that audible sigh.
Oh, no.
There's the other part where you'll have one person on the
Peanut
far
gallery
side.
comments.
Exactly. Or you'll have one person on the far side saying, no, his arm was like this, and somebody over here, no, it was fine. Well, one of you was right, one of you was wrong, and eventually, there's cases like that, which, you just roll with it. You don't even, that's, and especially sometimes they might get a little temperamental when the instructor says, no, I think, you moved your you moved your stand a little bit. This does not look like, this does not look like
So let's. Like in history, obviously this doesn't happen and certainly not in a group setting. But in history, famously, a lot of artists would sleep with their models. I don't think that happens so much these days, and certainly not in a group setting. That's a professional setting. It is a job, and it's very professional. But have you become friends with any of the art students?
Students, no. Models, yes. I would say, especially, one of the reasons it hasn't happened with students is a couple of reasons. A, because I was part-time, I was never as active as a full-time model.
Okay.
A lot of these, when I did model, were for colleges and universities. So there's a clear, these people are like from like 18 to like early 20s. Right. At my youngest was my mid-30s. Like, no, there's a line that's. But I have had certain things where people would say, like, I can give you an example. This woman in one class was giving me a compliment and said something like, oh, you've got such strong legs. But she was like almost like cooing. Like, it was kind of like, it's like, must have got definition in your legs. So it's like, oh, you have really strong legs.
How strong you are.
Yes.
What big, lovely arms you have.
Exactly. And I'm just like, oh, thank you very much. But I kind of go back, I nod and I smile.
Okay,
and
Robin Hood.
Yeah, right. And then
Little Red Riding Hood, whatever it was.
Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, good. Put your cape on and go home.
Yeah. Grab your picnic basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in cases like that, you don't try and like, okay, no, this is not her telling you it's date night. I would never.
Yeah.
I would frankly caution art models. Not dynamics are different. I mean, if it's in a drawing group that generally the people are a bit older, it's possible. I've never heard in DC of an artist and a model dating, at least in the sense that they met at a session and hit it off. It's possible their paths could have crossed somewhere else, and so I don't think that's ever really happened. I just honestly, and again, the dynamics of me being a man would be a little different, and I don't want there being any sort of like, it could, the dynamics of maybe if you had a female model and was getting friendly and maybe asked a male artist out, I think the dynamics are a little different than if
but even so, generally, it's like the advice, don't get your loving where you get your money, don't get your pushing where you get your cushion,
right?
Whatever these things are, right? It's like a workplace.
Exactly, and you don't want word to get around that you're fraternizing.
Yeah, and in that way, it's kind of like on cruise ships. They're not allowed to socialize at all.
Yeah.
They're like 1,200 staff, and they are not allowed to get friendly with the people on the cruise ship.
And I mean, from a model's perspective, I've definitely befriended many other art models. Just because your paths cross all the time.
Right.
You do share a common bond, regardless of experience levels, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. It's just, we can relate to each other. There's maybe certain things I wouldn't necessarily be able to relate to a woman model, but I could maybe empathize, and vice versa. That there's definitely common bonds, but
now, have you addressed all the things that we've talked about? Have you addressed all of these on your blog?
I don't know if I addressed issues like erections and penis size or anything like that, and the reason I've been a little bit hesitant to do that was enough people know me in real life that I just don't know. I've been talking with an art model about this because I thought it was something that people do have legitimate questions about, and she said, well, hey, what you can do is I can help you kind of write it. There's different privacy settings on WordPress if you want to like not have any comments or do anything like that. But I'll be honest, one of the blog posts that I blogged about was, hey, not everybody draws your penis. And it's one of those ones where I will randomly check my blog stats, even though I haven't posted for years. A couple times a week, someone will go to that particular post and nothing else.
The word itself. That's why I started this podcast.
So I have gotten some weird.
And then do they get really bored reading it? Do you see that they go in and read it and they're like, this is not interesting?
No, I think they specifically go there for that and that's it, because they'll if they click on anything else in that thing, it'll be the about page. Normally you can kind of tell where people see that post because they're going through multiple other posts and you can see which ones, and you can tell they're clearly going down.
Yeah.
I probably will talk about it at some point. Again, I just have to, it's not putting myself out there, so to speak.
Yeah. And what's the address? What's the URL?
It is awfully hard. I got to actually think about it for a second. It's jasonandthegoldenpose.wordpress.com, and I can, what I can do? I can forward that up to you with an email. About that, but I've got to laziness set in, and especially since I wasn't working for a good 3 or 4 years, I was running out of things, frankly, to write about.
But you wrote so much, and except for the few things that I brought up, pun intended, today, you could turn that into a book. I mean, it's a blog, but, it could be a very interesting kind of
confessions,
tutorial or
almost like a combination of guide mixed in with maybe some memoirs. start each chapter or each section with maybe a paragraph that's just my musings about something.
Yeah, memoirs of an art model, of a nude model.
David Quammen had actually suggested that at one point.
Okay.
Because I had sent it to him. He's like, hey, he liked it. He said, hey, I think that's, and nothing came of it, and he passed away like a year or two later. One of the things my art model friend was saying, hey, well, what you can do is you can go back and repost some of your older posts that are still relevant, and again, say it's a repost, and then you're just not modernizing it. You're updating it a little.
Yeah, I mean, if you either link to it or copy it and then paste it into a new posting, then it becomes a new posting, right?
Exactly.
Because, I mean, what I do on my blog, for example, is I will just go in and I will update the actual thing, but then it doesn't make it a new posting. It makes it just the old posting that I've updated, right? But you can do it as a completely new posting, and I think that there's enough traction there that, because you have you have hindsight,
right?
And wisdom, say in quotes.
Yeah.
Wisdom, but you have enough distance too from it to be like, okay, let me think about this again.
Exactly. Right? That I could repost it with a preface at the beginning saying, hey, I initially wrote this 10 years ago. Maybe in italics, put some comments next to certain things I wrote, like, hey, editor's note, I have since found out that this is not the case, or that.
Or I was more protective of people.
Yeah.
Or I thought that I couldn't write about it back then, but now I'm willing to speak more freely about the size.
Right.
Let's talk about the size.
Exactly. Let's just get it out of the way. Yeah. And it's like, I kind of well, maybe anonymous.
Beforehand, you didn't bring it up. You didn't talk about it.
Right. Hitherto, I didn't do it just because it's a combination of. A lot of my friends know where my blog is, but I don't necessarily want all of them knowing about certain subjects. Others, again, you've got the perv factor, I hate to say.
Yes.
Again, certain people were because you can approve the comments before they get posted, that I'm like, okay, this is like a lurid sex fantasy of yours. Yeah, we're just going to delete that. Frankly, pal, you're a little creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Very rarely does it happen.
Yeah.
But it's one of those ones. But again, like my friend had said, hey, there's ways. I've got suggestions to how you can limit your audience, how you can.
Yeah. But I think this is also a matter of only if you want to write this. Because if you don't want to write it, then you don't have to.
Well, I kind of do. I mean, and it's kind of like, okay, I can at least start off with some new blog topics to get the creative juices flowing, and then kind of maybe repost some of my old commentary and things like that.
Read back on it and think, oh, I said this, and then just quote yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, I said this, and here's what really happened.
Right. The main thing...
I put it this way, but really what was happening was this.
With 12 years experience, I have since found that I was speaking in a place of ignorance about this. I have formally found this. The one thing I need to do is I need to give my overall blog layout a refresh, because that is a template from probably 2008 that I need to make it look more professional.
Okay.
And I don't know how I'm going to do that. I know there's templates out there.
But they have templates right there.
That's what I'm thinking. There's templates, and the other thing, too, is because, again...
And you just click on them and try them out, and then be like, oh, I don't like it after all.
Well, I've heard WordPress is a lot more user-friendly than it was back when I had first started.
Oh, yes.
The other thing
my gosh, yes. WordPress was a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
For people who went from Blogspot,
yes, which is what I used to do.
Which was super easy and user-friendly, to WordPress. But honestly, and now, I mean, I work in social media for my day job as well, and now a lot of many websites and other online publishing platforms look like WordPress. The back end, they look like WordPress. So it is, I mean, I remember the advice back then. This is what, 14, 18, 17 years ago. I remember the advice was that you should use WordPress. It would take you 24 hours of misery to get your blog on there, but then after that it would be much better. And they were right. It was a miserable 24 hours.
And that's why for me...
I went there.
And that's why for me what I did was, once I got it to acceptable enough status, I left it because frankly, and the other thing too is I wasn't posting pictures of myself.
Right.
You know, because frankly I wasn't taking a lot of them.
Right.
That's something I will revisit moving forward.
But didn't I take photos of you? I did. Remember we went, you wanted to have some pictures.
Yes, we did.
At the Hillier, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Because you asked me to take some photos of you that were very discreet.
Yep.
Very professional, because you wanted to have some pictures. What did you want them for?
I think it was just for general reference. Just kind of if somebody said, hey, you know, what is if they wanted a reference photo, but it wasn't anything that's like, you know, full on nude. But it's like, okay, you could, from what you can see, you can surmise what I look like.
Sort of a portfolio. Exactly.
That's something I need to get back into, just because, frankly, the Jason of 2023 looks a lot different than the Jason of 2008. I remember I had...
better.
Oh, no, but that's exactly why I wanted it.
I know. I mean, people think worse, but no, really better.
No,
it is much better. 15, how many years is it?
About 15.
Yeah, it's 15 years. Yeah, much better.
So I realized, hey, look, a lot of these photos where me physically at my worst are not necessarily, I don't want to post those as the first pictures that I post. I post them to, like, you know, Facebook a few times. I've highly curated the audience that can see them.
Yeah.
Another thing I need to work on is, there's one place I reached out to about 6 months ago, and the person said, hey, we're not looking for any models right now, but, you know, hey, send me a couple, like, you know, photos and drawings of you, things like that, just so we know what you look like, and send your CV.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this is one of those things I went back and forth on. Pardon, I will eventually have to do one. And I can understand why.
But it has to be an art modeling CV.
Right, so like I'm not going to submit my general resume because that has no bearing whatsoever. So I need to go back and reconstruct.
But you have an impressive art modeling CV.
Oh, yeah, and even though if some of those places are defunct, I can still list them, you know, because they're going to know what they are.
Yeah.
You know, DuPont Drawing Group hasn't existed for ages, but they know who that is. It's just a matter of me being lazy, and I need to get off. It's like, you know, if you just get off your butt and do it, spend a Sunday afternoon doing it, and then it's done. And then if anybody wants it, click.
Well, the good thing about CVs is they got to be a page, no more than a page. And it is amazing nowadays what variety of CVs there are. I mean, like, they look so different. You know, there are people that do CVs that are like all color blocks.
Oh.
And they look like all graphs. And then there are others that are your very standard, traditional, blah, blah, blah.
Which is what mine's going to be, because quite frankly, at this point, it's like, look, most places don't even ask you for it. So I figure, okay, for those that do, they don't need anything fancy. This is
you just want to list. You want to list like the schools you worked at, the amount of hours, you know, like how much, you know, from what time, the experience at different times, you know, and they will see, wow, he's worked with all these different schools.
You know, I spoke on the phone with one of my art model friends a couple months ago. We were on the phone for about a good 2 hours, and she gave me all sorts of great advice, which I wrote down, and then in a fit of cleaning, I accidentally threw out the notepad. So she and I are going to have to get together again to go ahead and do that, because she gave me some perfect advice about that sort of thing, like how to format it and how to lay it out in the terms. So,
yeah, I mean, like, so, you know, I mean, there are places that will do a CV for you that, I mean, some places will charge you $1,500 to redo your CV. It's a good gig.
No, it is, and it's something
that's separate. I'm like, I should get into that gig.
It's something I need to do for my professional CV. I'm not going to do it for my modeling CV. I'm probably going to take like a standard stock template and just use it back. Because at that point, too, it's just kind of
you can just use the ones that are in the Word formatting.
Yeah, because
the word processing program, they have lots of good templates.
Oh, yeah, and for some of the people that do ask for a CV, I'm sure it's just to check a box, you know, just to prove that you're serious and, you know, you're not pulling this crap out of your rear.
I mean, definitely for an art model, I guess if you are a coordinator, if you're the hiring person at a university or an art school, you have no way of knowing who this person is. It could just be your regular old perv.
Well, that's exactly it.
You need to have references. You should put references.
Oh, I do have those.
Yeah. You should have references, their phone number, email, so people can, and also well-known people, so that they can, I do know who this person is. I will call them at the school. And then also it would be nice if you had a little, like, portfolio in terms of online, by invitation only, for example. You could give them a password. Or you could send them a PDF that's locked with a password.
Oh, that's
obviously
a good idea, too.
Not nude pictures of you.
No.
But, a couple of the ones, just showing, like, a picture of something that someone did of you.
Yeah. Or even just a couple pictures of, like, a model friend and I did a photo shoot a couple months ago. That's, again, I'm wearing clothes,
just so
obviously,
but
they can see what my face is like. They can see how tall I am.
Because they might be like, I don't like men with that color hair. We don't want anybody like that. Or, this brings me to another question which I forgot to ask you. Of the models out there, are they all of the same ethnicity?
I would say up until, I'm going to say this is pre-COVID, because post-COVID, it's been in flux so much, I couldn't even tell you. I would say as of right before COVID, I would say the vast majority of the models were white. And I can't tell you why that is. There are black models, there are Hispanic models, I think there are a few Asian models. By and large, it's a predominantly white industry, and I cannot tell you why that is. I just, same reason why I can't explain the split between the male and female ratios, I just don't know.
Yeah, I think that the long and venerated tradition of nude modeling, because it is really a long and venerated tradition, comes from the Western European tradition. So that's probably, it's more in that, I don't know, it's like not even in the universe of somebody from probably a anyway, without sounding politically incorrect, but so that's probably why it is like that. And that's like in the old days in terms of television and makeup. Everything was made for, like they used to be the skin tone that was, called like nude.
Right.
And now I believe it's called beige too, or
or
whatever.
It would be flesh. It's like, okay, well, there's flesh comes in different colors.
I know, flesh colored and nude.
It's like, it's a little.
So, well, all right. I think we have fleshed out. We have done a almost 2 hour recording.
All right. Well, I had a blast.
And we've been talking to Jason of Jason in the Golden Pose, an art model, a nude art model, male nude art model. And I hope you listened all the way through to the end here. And if not, you missed out on some of the really good stuff.
Jason and I had such a great time talking about his career as an art model, so there will be a follow-up. So listen next time.